Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tom Johnson, and I'm the director of EOGOGIC's Web Live programs. Having been involved in computer-based training in one form or another for more than 25 years now, it's my pleasure to welcome all of you to this Web Live session. For those of you who may be new to EOGOGICS, I'll refer you to the About EOGOGICS page of our website. Suffice to say that the EOGOGICS team, led by KK Aurora, has been involved with many landmark telecom projects worldwide during the last 20 years. In fact, I believe KK is in the audience somewhere. Perhaps he's busy at the moment. Let me introduce our presenter today. Jim Cavanaugh is a principal member of the EOGOGICS telecommunications faculty. During Jim's impressive 30-plus year career, he's been involved in the hands-on design of many local and global networks, including many different technologies. It's no surprise then that he teaches a wide range of EOGOGICS courses, including Next Generation Networks, this one, IMS, SIP, E over IP, VoIP, IPTV, Unified Communications, Mobile IP, IP version 6, IPsec, MPLS, SNMP, Ethernet, SONET SDH, DWDM, Network and Installation Security, Disaster Recovery, CALIA 911, and many other topics. He's a popular instructor and has taught hundreds of classes on the web and in person worldwide. He's published a half a dozen books and scores of articles on various aspects of telecom, and he is as entertaining as he is knowledgeable. I think you'll enjoy today's class. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Cavanaugh.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you happen to be. I'd like to say welcome. I'd like to say bienvenidos, sawubona, howdy, yahala, namaste, and for those of you in the northeast part of the United States, I'll just say yo. So welcome to the program today. Got folks from all over the place, and that certainly is a good sign of the level of interest in the Next Generation Network. So welcome to today's program. This is copyrighted content, copyright 2009, the EOGOGICS organization, and any other use is prohibited strictly. Don't even ask about the penalties. Let's begin by talking about the NGN perspectives. In fact, perspectives in and of themselves are very interesting. I was in the car over the weekend with my family, and we were listening to the songs of the African apartheid, the songs that were anti-apartheid, and these were actually in English. And my daughter found something rather humorous, and I had to ask her what, as this is a rather serious topic. And she said, I didn't know that South Africa was the land of whoopee cushions. And I said, well, South Africa's not the land of whoopee cushions. Where did you get that? She said, play that music again. Get back and listen to that again. It did sound to a 7-year-old that they said that South Africa was the land of whoopee cushions. Actually, it said South Africa was the land of repercussions. So we all have our own views. We all have our own way of looking at things, and we bring that perspective. Let's go ahead and leave our own perspectives at the door today and enter into a methodology or a system whereby we will look at different perspectives on next generation networks. Let's begin by talking about an NGN versus the NGN. From your perspective, you probably have a general idea of what the NGN is. The NGN might very well be the next generation fiber optical network. It might very well be a network that involves the IMS and fixed mobile convergence as a way of getting to the next generation. Maybe you're looking at unified communications, presence, location, preference type services, a SIP-based network, session initiation protocol enabled, or a MPLS or VPLS. These are all different variations on the theme, and to any one group, these might represent the NGN. But in fact, there are multiple NGNs and multiple variations, so let's take a look at some of the perspectives. First of all, some definitions, and these may or may not agree with your definitions, but please accept them for our program today. We'll begin by talking about the carrier. The carrier historically and typically operates at layer 1 of the OSI model. The carrier is an organization typically bound by law in various countries, some more strict than others, as far as exactly what they can do, but typically a carrier moves information from one place to another without modification. They carry information. Think about a delivery service like a Federal Express. They're a carrier. They deliver something without modification, without looking into it, without making any changes. Service provider, on the other hand, actually provides a service on top of the information that is delivered by the carrier and provides something a little extra. Beyond the service provider is the managed service provider. In fact, from a standpoint of a carrier and a service provider, very often managed service provider is undetectable in the mix because they look a lot like the end user. Additionally, we've got a couple of new characters, if you will, that have been playing in the game here recently. The application service provider, and both application service providers from a standpoint of the companies providing different applications and organizations providing different flavors of the same applications. We take a look at these definitions, we can lay them out against the OSI model, and we can see that there is a relationship of commodity to opportunity in the next generation networks. And this is something we've seen really for quite some time. The carriers at the bottom of this definition are really the most challenged to come up with a differentiation to get away from the commodity idea. Historically, carriers have been, in many cases, postal, telephone, and telegraph authorities of the government, and they're looking for differentiation. One of the ways they often do that is to actually create a separate service provider environment. On top of that, dealing with more higher layers and dealing with different levels of opportunity are the managed service providers, end user organizations, and application service providers. So we can say that the higher we are in the OSI model, the more opportunity there is in the next generation networks, but the more risk. We also can say that for the next generation networks, we still have to have carriers and we still have to have facilities, though there are a lot of trends in different directions, they still have to exist. They're a very important part of the next generation network. Carriers are the basis for all the services. They have a lot of serious legal considerations. They are limited to moving bits. What are their next generation network issues? When they look at next generation networks, they're really not thinking about new applications, about Facebook 2, about Internet 5, about 5G wireless or whatever. They're looking at advances in optical, advances in wireless, picocells and things like that. They're looking at the high end of the wireless, bigger bandwidth, bigger distances, and they're looking at architectures from a standpoint of how a premise or individual user will interact with the network, how the access is done, and what happens in the backbone. For a carrier, bandwidth is one of the biggest issues, and in fact, their job is, as they see it, to provide as much bandwidth as they possibly can afford to provide financially. What about the service provider? Well, they basically buy their services from a carrier, so they are the carrier's customer. They, of course, in that regard, worry about things like service level agreements and that sort of stuff. They also provide services to the MSPs and the end users, so they are a provider as well. They may be independent, they may be owned by a carrier, but in any case, this is a fairly expensive business to get into. What are their issues? Yes, they do worry about some of the physical layer stuff, the optical, metallic, wireless. They worry about DSL, cable access, but to a greater extent, they're worried about things like VPLS and MPLS and Ethernet and a mix of services. Very often, a service provider might be global or they may be localized, but they deal with the higher layer things. Something that a lot of these service providers are very concerned about, but a lot of people don't really think about is circuit emulation.